In this tutorial, I will be sharing how I made this tulle dress for a very good friend of mine for our bridal shower. If this is something you want to learn how to do, then this video is for you. My name is Ayomide, and on this channel, I post DIY easy to follow sewing tutorials. Now, without taking too much of your time, let us jump straight into this video. For this tutorial, you'll be needing the following. You'll be needing this tulle or whatever tulle color of your choice. I made use of 20 yards of tulle, and I made this dress for a size 14 just to put it into proper context. So if you are making for a larger size, you would be needing more tulle. If you're making for a smaller size, you might not use up to 20 yards. Also, you'll be needing doll face. I use this doll face satin for the base of the tulle. We can opt for something else, but this was what I used. Okay, so this tutorial will be focusing more on the tulle part. Okay, now to move on, I'm going to be cutting out a half circle skirt, and that would form the base of this dress. And the first thing I would mark is my radius for a half circle, and to get your radius you need to divide your waist by 3. Okay, so I've gone ahead to divide, and here I'm marking my radius out. After marking, I went ahead to connect all the points, and at this point I did not even realize that my markings was not showing, but I later highlighted it later on, so please bear with me. Also, I went to check to be sure it will cover up the waist. Next, I'm marking the length of the flare from the radius that I had marked, and initially I went for a length of 16, but I later reduced this to about 13 inches because it was too long. This is me here using my white chalk to highlight the radius and also the length. It was at this point I realized that my markings were not showing on camera. After highlighting, I went on to cut out. After cutting, this is what my flare is looking like. You can see it is a half circle. Next thing, I'm going to be working on the hem of this flare, and to do that I'm going to be using this crinoline to have a wavy effect along the hem. So I'll just place crinoline on the right side of the doll face, but before then I will secure the end with a portion of the fabric and sew it on the right side of the fabric on one end. I'll just go ahead and sew it all the way down. After sewing, this is what I have. You can see I covered up the end of the crinoline with a portion of the fabric, and I've gone ahead to stitch it down on one hem. Next, I'll be stitching it down on the upper part of the crinoline so that it can be fully attached to the doll face. After sewing, guys, this is what it looks like. This is what I have. So guys, the next thing I'll do is to mark my lines where I'm going to be attaching the tulle. I want to have 3 layers of tulle, so I want the first layer to start about 2.5 to 3 inches above the hem. So I'm marking 2.5 inches above the hem, and I will just mark it all around. This step is very crucial as it will help you know where to attach your tulle. So guys, I am done marking the first layer, and that is it there. For the second layer, I'll be marking about 6 inches above the first layer. So just go ahead and mark 6 inches above the first layer all around. I'm done marking the second layer. As for the third layer, I think it would just make sense that it starts half an inch below the waistline. So that would be the first layer. Here I'm marking half an inch beneath the waistline, and I'll mark it from one end of the doll face to the other end. Guys, I am done marking, and here is what I have: the first layer, the second layer, and the third layer. It is now time to work on the tool itself. For the tool, I've gone ahead to cut out a portion out of the 20 yards because I figured out working with 20 yards at a go was not exactly comfortable. For my tool, I'll be cutting out a length of 8 inches. Here, I'm marking out a line where I'll be starting from so that my tool can be of equal length. I'll trim that off, and from there, I'll be marking 8 inches. So the good thing about your tool is that the layers should cover up each other. So my layers, my first and second layer were about 6 inches long. Working with 8 inches would mean that they would overlap by about 1 to 1.5 inch, which is fine. So you need to cut out your 2 layers, cut enough so that you don't start getting up and cutting. Cut out a lot, a lot, a lot. So here I'm just cutting out as much as I would need. I am done cutting out the first batch. It is now time to create the gathers. And for these, for the first layer, that's the one that will be attached to the hem of the base, I'm going to be picking two fabric. So I have one tool here and another one placed on it, and I would create my gathers. Okay, so I did not just gather one line of tulle, I gathered 2 lines of tulle for the base, for the parts that will be attaching to the hem of the flare. Here I have already gathered the layer of tulle that will be attached to the hem of the base, and I just want to do a mock-up to see how it was going to look like. So I'm going to be pinning the gathered tulle to that first line just to have an idea of what I have if I need to increase the layers that I gathered. Remember, I gathered two lines of tulle, or 2 pieces of tulle, for the first layer. I was comfortable with what I have, so what I went on to do was to stitch this down on the first layer. I realized that pinning the tulle to the fabric helped me. It helped make my work easier behind the sewing machine instead of just trying to figure it out as I go. Because I'm going to be attaching a zipper, I'm not going to be stitching the tulle to the end of the satin. Would leave some allowance, which I would finish up later on. I am back to the floor, and it is now time to work on the second layer. For the second layer, I gathered 4 tulle together. Remember, for the first layer, I gathered 2. But for the second layer, I placed 4 tulle on top of each other to create the gathers. And this was to achieve a more fuller effect. And here, I'm pinning it down just like I did the first layer before proceeding to my sewing machine to stitch this down. I am back to my sewing machine, and just going on to gently sew this down. Here, I just pinned this down on my mannequin just to have a picture of what I'm doing so far. And at this point, I loved the outcome. Here, I'm also sewing the third layer. And like I did for the second layer, I gathered 4 layers of tulle together just to have a fuller effect. And guys, this is what I have so far. You can see how full and how pretty looking this is looking like. I left some allowance by the zipper area. I'm going to be finishing this off later on. Off camera, I've gone ahead to work on the upper parts. Like I said, this tutorial is focused on the 2 parts. So this is the upper part that I'm going to be attaching to this tulle bottom. I've got the midpoint of both the upper parts, the upper bodice and the skirt. So I pinned the midpoint first of all, and I'll proceed to sew it down along the waistline. This is what my dress is looking like after sewing. I love the outcome so far. You can see it. Next thing, I'll be closing up the zipper area on the skirt part. So just go ahead and close it up and leave some inches where I'm going to be fixing the zip, because the skirt part would carry the zip. I'll also finish off the tulle area along the zipper, and as you can see, I've closed up my zipper and I've also used the tool to close up any space so you can see it, and that is the zipper allowance right there where I would be fixing a zipper. So guys, before fixing a zipper, I'm going to be using this lining here to finish off the waistline and to also create more fullness. So to do this, I'll just go ahead and create gathers. Use this lining to create plenty gathers around the waistline. After sewing in the gathers, this is what it is looking like. I love the fact that it gave it a clean finish also. So all those ruffles, the edges were not showing, they're already covered on the inside. To proceed, I will then go on and fix my zipper along the zipper allowance. So just go ahead and fix my zipper right here. I am done fixing my zipper, and this is what the dress is looking like. At this point, my dress is ready. I just need to fix the modesty panel and the rope for the lacing. So guys, for more fullness, you can also use a hard net. Sew on a hard net on your lining so that this dress can have more fullness. But I felt the tulle already gave it the fullness, and that was fine. And guys, just take a look at my friend. See how pretty she looked in this dress. If you found this tutorial helpful, please give it a huge thumbs up. I enjoyed making this dress. If you haven't subscribed, please click on the subscribe button, and I'll see you all in my next video. Stay blessed and take care.